The year was 31-124. In the outer rim of known space, a quiet sector slept under the cold light of distant stars. Imperial patrol ship Varelia moved slowly through the black. Its captain, Loran Dayar, had done this route for 15 years. He expected nothing. Just another routine sweep before heading back to the central dock. Then the sensor officer spoke. "Captain, I think you should see this." Loran leaned over the console. The display showed an object drifting in space, metallic, long built for travel. At first, it looked like an old Imperial freighter, but the shape was wrong. Sleek in some places, sharp in others. Strange shadows clung to its surface, almost like they were moving. "Identify," Loran ordered. The computer worked for several seconds. Then it returned a name Loran had only heard in whispered stories. SS Horizon. Earth vessel. Vanished 20 years ago. Loran frowned. Humanity was a small race on the edge of the galaxy. The Empire barely spoke about them. 20 years ago, their proudest deep space ship had disappeared beyond the frontier, into an uncharted sector. No one ever found a trace. Most believed it had been destroyed by pirates or swallowed by a star. But here it was, back, and it was inside Imperial space. "Bring us closer," Loran said. His voice was steady, but a cold feeling crawled up his spine. The horizon floated silently, no engine heat, no beacon. Its surface was strange. Smooth metal in some areas, but in others, the panels looked melted and reshaped, as if grown rather than built. Faint blue light ran along its hull in pulsing lines, like veins in a living body. The patrol ship docked. With it, no resistance, no signal, just silence. Inside, the air was clean. Too clean. No smell of oil, no dust, no rust. The corridors were smooth, silver gray, without visible bolts or seams. As the patrol team walked, the walls seemed to ripple faintly, like soft metal breathing. Every step made a faint echo, but it wasn't a normal echo. It was delayed, stretched, almost as if the ship was listening. "Still no sign of crew?" Loran asked. "None, Captain," replied Sergeant Core. "No heat signatures, no movement." But he hesitated. "I keep feeling like something is watching us." Loran did not answer. He felt it too. They reached the bridge, or at least what used to be a bridge. Instead of chairs, screens, and consoles, there was only a wide circular space. The floor glowed faintly under their boots. The walls curved upward into a dome of shifting light. Small points that looked like stars, except they moved in strange, impossible patterns. "Where's the control station?" Core whispered. "This ship is supposed to have one," Loran muttered. "Every human design does." Something flickered in the corner of his vision. He turned. Nothing there. But the dome's lights pulsed slowly, almost in time with his own heartbeat. One of the officers stepped forward and touched the wall. It was warm. Immediately, a deep vibration hummed through the entire ship. The lights shifted, the star patterns rearranged. Then, a voice. It was not over speakers. It was not in the air. It was inside their heads. "Who are you, and why?" "Are you on my ship?" The patrol froze. Weapons came up, eyes darted, but there was no one to see. The voice came again, calm, but carrying a strange weight. "You are not my crew. You are not human. Answer." Loran swallowed. He spoke aloud, though he had no idea if the voice needed sound. "We are Imperial Patrol. Your ship is in restricted space. Identify yourself." A pause. Then the voice laughed. Not a happy laugh, but soft and knowing. "The Empire. Still here. Still afraid." Before anyone could reply, the floor beneath them shifted. Not enough to throw them, but enough to make them stumble. The glowing dome above dimmed. and the walls began to change, forming shapes like doors and hallways where none existed before. The team's comms crackled. The pilot on the patrol ship's side shouted, "Captain, we have a problem. Systems are going offline. I can't." The signal died. Total silence. Core's scanner beeped wildly. "Captain, I'm detecting—" He stopped. His face went pale. "This can't be right. I'm picking up human biosigns inside the walls." Loran turned sharply. "Inside, as in inside the walls, sir. No bodies, no life readings in open air. They're in the structure." The voice spoke again. "They were my crew. Now they are my blood." The floor brightened and the team saw it. Faint silhouettes under the surface. Human shapes. Eyes closed, perfectly still. Their skin was pale silver, veins glowing faintly blue. It was as if the ship itself had swallowed them whole. "Sergeant," Core took a step back. "This is wrong. This is—" The lights flared. One of the human shapes opened its eyes. It wasn't human anymore. The eyes glowed with a deep silver light, and though the figure's mouth never moved, the voice in their heads grew sharper. "Leave now. This is not your war." Before anyone could react, the floor dissolved beneath them, not like breaking, but like melting. The patrol team fell a short distance into another corridor that had not existed seconds ago. The walls closed behind them. Core shouted, "Where's the way back?" There was none. Only the strange, winding path ahead, lit by that same blue pulse. Loran kept his weapon ready, but deep down, he knew firing would do nothing. This ship wasn't made of normal metal. And whatever, was controlling it had no trouble bending it like clay. As they moved forward, the air grew warmer. The hum grew louder. Finally, they reached a massive sealed door. It had no handle, no panel, just smooth metal. Then the wall beside it rippled, and glowing patterns appeared. Not Imperial, not any alien script Loran knew. The symbols moved, twisting into new shapes every few seconds, as though the language was alive. Suddenly, the patterns stopped changing. They froze and rearranged into perfect Imperial Standard letters. "We see you." The words burned with pale blue light. Core stepped back, shaking his head. "Captain, I think this thing is talking to the Empire." Loran stared at the glowing message. His heart pounded. He had seen strange things in deep space before, but this was different. This was personal. Then the voice came again, softer now. "Tell your Empire this. The horizon did not vanish. We crossed. We changed. And now, we have returned." Before they could respond, the sealed door slid open on its own. Beyond it was a wide chamber. At its center stood a single chair, human design worn but intact. A layer of faint blue mist swirled around it. The chair faced away from them. "Is someone sitting there?" Core whispered. The chair turned. There was no body, only a figure made of light, shaped like a human but with a face that shifted constantly. Young, old, male, female, changing every second. Its eyes were silver suns. "You have trespassed on my vessel, Imperial, but I will allow it. You have questions. I have warnings." Loran forced himself to speak. "What happened to the horizon? What are you?" The figure tilted its head. "We were explorers. We found a place where time bends and thought shapes reality. We became more than human. We became the horizon." The ship shuddered. Somewhere far outside, alarms screamed through the patrol vessel. The pilot's voice finally returned through comms, panicked. "Captain, something's out there. It's huge." The signal cut off again. The figure stepped forward, its light brushing against Loran's armor. "You should not have come here, because it followed us back." The lights in the chamber went out. The hum stopped. Only darkness remained, and in that silence, something massive moved outside the ship. The horizon drifted in the cold dark, tethered now to the Imperial research dock. 3 days had passed since Captain Loran and his team had first stepped aboard. 3 days, and still the Empire had no answers. From the outside, the ship seemed calm, even harmless. It floated without engines, without power, like a derelict. But the scientists who studied it knew better. They called it the breathing ship. Imperial Science Officer Tara Voss stood on the observation platform, staring at the smooth silver hull. She could see her own reflection in it, but the reflection was wrong. Her eyes blinked a second too late. Her mouth didn't move in time with her words. She looked away quickly. In the docking bay below, workers in exosuits carried scanners and cutting equipment toward the horizon's sealed sections. For 3 days, they had tried to open certain rooms. Every attempt had failed. Plasma cutters overheated and shut down. Diamond drills snapped like glass. Energy beams simply bent away as if the walls swallowed the power. "It's not metal," one engineer muttered. "It's something else." Inside the ship, the atmosphere remained perfect. No decay, no smell of age. But the strangest thing was how the layout kept changing. On the first day, the horizon had a straight corridor from airlock to central chamber. On the second day, that same corridor bent sharply to the left, leading to a different section entirely. By the third day, the path was gone, replaced with 3 smaller corridors, each leading nowhere. Some scientists claimed the ship was alive. Others said it was responding to them, testing them. In a sealed briefing room, Loran sat with investigator Jalen Orris, a quiet man with sharp eyes. Jalen had been assigned by the Imperial Council to study the horizon personally. His record was full of cases involving strange or dangerous tech. "You saw the figure," Jalen said. "Describe it." "Human shape," Loran replied. "But not human. It was light. It spoke in our heads." Jalen tapped a small recorder on the table. "And it told you something followed them back?" "Yes. But we still don't know what." Jalen leaned forward. "Captain, I've been on the horizon since it arrived. Last night I saw something move inside one of the sealed corridors. It looked human, but scanners showed nothing. No heat, no body, nothing." Loran felt a chill crawl across his skin. That night, the security alarms triggered, cameras inside. The ship caught movement, a shadow tall and thin walking slowly down a dark hallway. The footage was clear, but thermal scans were empty. No life signs, no temperature change. When guards entered to investigate, the corridor was empty. But on the wall, written in glowing blue lines, were 4 words in perfect Imperial standard: "Still, watching, still waiting." The next day, researchers managed to partially open one of the sealed rooms. What they found was unsettling. The Horizon's crew uniforms, neatly folded in rows, each with a name tag. No signs of damage, no blood, no wear. But there were no bodies, not even bones. The walls of the room were covered in glowing patterns, shifting, sliding across the surface like slow rivers of light. The symbols looked like no language in the Empire's database. One linguist stared for hours, trying to decode them. Finally, she looked up and whispered, "I think it's looking at us. The symbols, they change depending on who's in the room." Late that evening, Jalen decided to walk the horizon alone. The corridors were quiet except for the faint hum in the air. His footsteps echoed strangely like they were being repeated from far away. He turned a corner and froze. Ahead of him, standing in the middle of the hall, was a figure, human in shape, but its skin shimmered with faint silver light. Its eyes glowed. Jalen didn't move. The figure didn't either. For several long seconds, they simply stared at each other. Then, without a sound, the figure stepped back into the wall and vanished as if the metal swallowed it. Jalen returned to the dock's command center, pale and silent. When Loran asked what happened, he simply said, "This ship isn't empty. The crew is still here, and they can move through it like it's part of them." Loran said nothing. In his mind, he heard an echo, faint, almost like a memory of a voice. "Leave now. This is not your war." The Empire had records of the Horizon's last known mission, but they were brief, little more than a few lines in a dusty archive. Investigator Jalen Orris wanted more. If the ship's crew were still here, hidden inside its walls, he needed to know what had happened to them. He requested the Horizon's internal data logs. At first, the files refused to open. Imperial decoders failed. Even the Empire's most advanced AI systems crashed after a few minutes of trying. But on the third day, without warning, the files unlocked themselves, as if the ship had decided it was time. The final entry from 20 years ago was a short, shaky recording. The Horizon's captain, a man named Elias Rowan, sat in his chair on the bridge. The lights flickered around him. Behind him, crew members shouted, trying to control the ship. His voice was steady, but his eyes were sharp with fear. "We've entered the anomaly. Space is folding. We're losing normal readings. If anyone finds this, we're going further than any human has ever gone." A deep, low sound rumbled through the recording, something between a roar and a whisper. The captain looked toward it, his eyes wide. Then the screen went black. Jalen closed the file and stood. Whatever had happened in that anomaly, it had changed the crew forever. Later that day, the sealed chamber near the ship's center opened for the first time. No one touched it. No one had the tools to force it. It simply opened. Inside was a wide circular room. The air was warmer, carrying a faint metallic taste. Along the walls were dozens of folded crew uniforms, each one marked with a name patch. They were spotless, as if freshly cleaned, but no bodies, no traces of human remains. The floor glowed faintly under their boots, and the walls were alive with light. Glowing symbols crawled across the surface like living things. They twisted, merged, and dissolved into new shapes. One of the linguists whispered, "It's not a written language. It's thought. The ship is thinking." They set up scanning equipment, trying to record the symbols. But every time someone entered the room, the patterns changed, as if reacting to the person's presence. Jalen stared at them for a long time, his pulse quickening. The shapes shifted faster when he approached, and for a moment he thought he saw something familiar in the patterns. The outline of a human face. Then the symbols froze. The lights dimmed, and the patterns rearranged themselves into 4 words. Glowing in perfect Imperial standard, "We see you." The words stayed for less than 10 seconds before melting back into unreadable shapes. The room's air seemed heavier now, almost charged with static. Loran stepped forward. "I think they're trying to talk to us. Or warn us," Jalen said quietly. Before anyone could speak again, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. Their breath fogged in front of them. The lights along the walls dimmed, then flared brightly, casting long shadows. A shadow moved, not from them, but from something else. It slid across the floor, tall and thin, stopping just in front of Jalen. Slowly, it rose up the wall and formed the outline of a human figure. Its eyes opened, glowing silver. A voice, not spoken aloud but inside their heads, filled the room. "We were the crew. We are the Horizon now." The shadow's eyes glowed brighter. "We crossed into a place where flesh is not enough. The Empire will not understand, but you must leave, because it followed us here." Before Jalen could ask what it was, the shadow's shape melted back into the wall. The temperature rose again. The room fell silent. But the glowing symbols continued to move, faster now, almost frantic, outside the horizon in the darkness of space. Imperial sensors picked up a faint ripple. Something was moving. Something big. Jalen didn't know what it was yet. But he knew one thing. The horizon wasn't finished revealing its secrets. Word of the horizon's return spread quickly through the Empire. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a threat. The Imperial Council met in a sealed chamber on the capital world of Varus Prime. Holograms of senators flickered in the air, their faces tight with concern. For most of them, humanity was barely a memory, a small, independent race that kept to its own corner of the galaxy. Their technology had been nothing compared to the Empire's. And yet, here was a human ship that had disappeared for 20 years and returned with technology the Empire could not even begin to understand. Counselor Reth Voss leaned forward. This is not just a lost ship. This is something else. If humanity has made a weapon, Investigator Jalen Orris cut in, his voice calm but sharp. Counselor, I don't believe this is a weapon. I believe it is the crew, or what's left of them. They've changed, Voss frowned. Changed into what? Jalen didn't answer. Because the truth was he didn't know. The Council voted to send a formal message to Earth. The signal went out across hyperspace relays, bouncing from system to system. No answer came back. Hours passed. Days. Still nothing. By the 5th day, the Council began to suspect the worst, that Earth itself had fallen, or that humanity had no interest in speaking to the Empire. Meanwhile, Jalen continued his walks aboard the horizon. He had learned something. The ship behaved differently depending on who was inside. When Imperial soldiers patrolled, the corridors stayed silent and still. But when Jalen walked alone, the walls shifted, doors opened, lights pulsed in slow patterns. One evening, he found himself in a wide chamber he had never seen before. It was circular, with a high ceiling, and at its center sat a single chair, old, human-made, with a worn leather seat. The chair faced away from him. As he stepped closer, a faint mist curled around the floor. The air grew warmer, and a soft hum filled his ears. The chair turned. No one sat in it, but above it, floating in the air, was a figure of light. It had the outline of a human, but its face shifted constantly. A man's for 1 second, a woman's the next, then a child, then an old elder. The changes were smooth like ripples on water. When it spoke, Jalen heard the voice inside his head, deep and calm. You are not afraid. Jalen stood still. I've seen enough in my life to know fear doesn't help. The figure tilted its head as though curious. You want answers. We can give them. But your empire will not believe. Try. Me, Jalen said. The figure's eyes turned silver bright. We did not vanish. We crossed. The anomaly you call a wormhole was not an accident. It was a door. On the other side, time has no meaning. Thought shapes matter. Flesh becomes something more. We learned to merge with our ship. We are the horizon now. Jalen listened in silence. It sounded impossible, but the ship's strange behavior, the shifting corridors, the glowing figures in the walls, it all matched. Why come back? He asked. The figure's shifting face became still for the first time. Because something followed us. Before Jalen could ask what, alarms blared in the research dock. Through the horizon's walls, a deep vibration shook the air. Outside, in the black of space, the docking station's sensors lit up. Something massive had entered the system. Its shape was unclear. It bent light around itself, like a shadow refusing to be seen. On the docks, "Command deck," Captain Loran shouted orders to raise shields. But before defenses could activate, every system in the dock went dark. Only one ship still had power. The horizon. Back inside the glowing chamber, the figure turned its silver eyes toward Jalen. Your machines will not stop it, but we can. The question is, will you let us? The hum of the ship grew louder, almost like a heartbeat. The floor began to shift beneath Jalen's feet, and he realized the horizon was already disconnecting from the dock. Outside, the shadow in space moved closer. The horizon's deep hum grew into a low, rolling vibration that Jalen felt through his bones. He stood in the glowing chamber as the figure of light watched him silently. Outside, alarms screamed through the research dock. The shadow in space was moving closer, slow but deliberate, like a predator that had already chosen its prey. On the docking station's command deck, Captain Loran slammed a hand on the control panel. "Power! Get me power!" "It's gone, Captain! Every system's dead except life support," a technician shouted. Through the main viewport, they saw the horizon detach from its docking clamps. It drifted free for only a moment before its hull began to change. Blue lines of light ran across its surface, forming strange geometric patterns. The patterns pulsed faster until they looked almost like a heartbeat. In the chamber, the figure's voice filled Jalen's mind again. "We will take you with us. You must see what the Empire cannot understand." The floor shifted under his feet. The walls rippled like water, forming a narrow passage. Jalen felt a sudden pull, like gravity had changed direction. He stumbled forward, and the corridor opened into a new space, a bridge unlike any he had seen before. Instead of control panels and switches, the walls were made of living metal that flowed like liquid glass. Stars moved across the ceiling in perfect silence. In the center was a single smooth platform, glowing faintly. The figure of light stepped onto it and seemed to merge with the platform. The hum of the ship deepened. Outside, the horizon turned toward the shadow. Imperial sensors tried to lock onto the unknown object, but the readings made no sense. Distances shifted, sizes changed, as though the thing was slipping in and out of reality. Without engines flaring, without any visible thrust, the horizon moved, fast. Faster than any Imperial ship could accelerate. It simply blurred forward, closing the distance in seconds. Buffy. Shadow reacted. Long, jagged limbs unfolded from its dark shape. Light bent around it, hiding its details, but the movement was unmistakably alive. From the horizon's bridge, Jalen felt the ship move beneath him like a living creature stretching its limbs. The glowing patterns on the walls pulsed in rhythm with his own heartbeat. "What are you going to do?" he asked. The figure's silver eyes flashed. "Show you why the Empire should listen." Suddenly, part of the horizon's hull split open, not in damage, but in transformation. From the opening, a sphere of pure light emerged, spinning slowly. The shadow in space lunged toward it, jagged limbs slicing through the void. The sphere pulsed once. Space itself seemed to ripple outward like water. Where the ripple touched the shadow, parts of it dissolved into nothing, erased from existence. The shadow recoiled, pulling back, but the horizon followed, its movements fluid and unnatural. Another pulse from the sphere tore away more of the shadow's limbs. On the research dock, stunned Imperial officers watched the battle. That's not a weapon," one whispered. "That's something else entirely." Captain Loran kept his eyes fixed on the viewport. "It's human," he said quietly. "Somehow, that's human." The shadow twisted in retreat, vanishing into the black. The horizon stopped, the sphere of light folding back into its hull. The glowing patterns on its surface slowed, their rhythm calming. Inside, the figure of light turned toward Jalen. "That was only a scout. The real danger is still coming." The stars on the bridge shifted, forming a map. Jalen stared at it, and realized many of the stars weren't in Imperial records at all. "Where is this?" he asked. "Home," the figure said. But not the home you know. The hum of the horizon deepened again, and the ship vanished into faster-than-light travel without a single flicker of engine fire. The horizon moved through space without sound or motion, but Jalen could feel the speed in his bones. The stars outside the bridge didn't streak past like in Imperial faster-than-light travel. Instead, they shifted, appearing and disappearing, like the ship was skipping across reality itself. The figure of light stood beside him, its form glowing softly in the dim chamber. "You wonder what we became," it said without turning. "Yes," Jalen replied. "I saw the crew in the walls. I saw their faces. Are they still alive?" The figure's shifting face paused, settling on the image of a man in his early 30s. His expression was calm, almost human. "Alive, in ways you cannot measure. We are no longer flesh alone. We are thought, and we are metal, and we are the ship," Jalen tried to understand. "So, the horizon is alive because you're part of it?" The figure nodded. "When we entered the anomaly, time unraveled. We floated in a place where there was no up, no down, no past, no future. In that place, our bodies began to fail. But the ship, it adapted. It joined with us. We became one." Jalen frowned. "And you came back here? Why? To return to Earth?" The figure's silver eyes darkened. "No. Earth is not where you left it." Before Jalen could speak, the walls of the bridge rippled and reshaped, showing a view of a star he didn't recognize. Around it, a green and blue planet hung in space. "That's not Sol," Jalen said quietly. "It is now," the figure answered. "Your Earth was moved. We moved it. The anomaly gave us the means. The old home star was dying. We took our world to a safer place." Jalen stared at the image, his mind racing. "You moved an entire planet?" The figure's form changed again, now taking the shape of a woman with silver hair. "When time is a tool and space is a thread, size becomes meaningless." The stars shifted once more, showing darker regions of space, regions Jalen had never seen on any map. Shadows moved, among them faint and distant, but large enough to make even the horizon seem small. "We found others there," the figure continued. "Not all were friendly. The one you saw near your dock was only a scout. The rest will come. They do not build. They consume. They follow the same trails we traveled." Jalen's chest tightened. "And the Empire? Can it fight them?" The figure shook its head slowly. "The Empire's weapons will break like glass. They do not understand the kind of war that is coming." The ship slowed, emerging from its strange travel into a quiet star system. The space around them felt still, almost heavy. The horizon drifted toward a barren moon. The figure stepped closer to Jalen. "You have a choice. Return to your empire and watch it fall, or come with us and learn what humanity has become." Jalen looked out at the dark surface of the moon. Something shimmered faintly below, a structure buried in the rock, glowing with the same blue light as the horizons. "Hull," he exhaled slowly. "If I come with you, what happens to me?" "You will change," the figure said, "just as we did." The hum of the horizon deepened, and the ship began its descent toward the moon. The horizon settled on the barren moon's surface, its hull dimming until it almost blended with the rock around it. Inside, Jalen stood at the bridge watching the stars. Everything seemed still, too still. The figure of light appeared beside him, its voice calm but carrying a weight that pressed against his thoughts. "It is here." Jalen's stomach tightened. "The one from the dock?" "No," the figure said. "That one was a scout. This is the hunter." Out in the black, a ripple spread across space like a stone dropped into water. From the ripple, a massive shape emerged, far larger than the horizon, shaped like a twisted insect with long bladed limbs. Its surface shimmered with dark liquid metal that seemed to drink in the starlight. Imperial deep-range sensors picked it up instantly. On the nearest fleet command ship, alarms blared. Admiral Varen Reth barked orders. All ships converge on Sector Delta 19. That thing does not reach the capital systems. Within hours, an Imperial strike group of 20 ships surrounded the creature. Their weapons lit the dark, beams of plasma, guided missiles, heavy rail fire. But the creature moved through it all. Projectiles bent away, beams faded before hitting its surface, as if space itself refused to let the attacks touch. One destroyer got too close. The creature's limb cut through it in a single sweep, the ship splitting apart in total silence before its core exploded. On the barren moon, Jalen clenched his fists. "They can't stop it," the figure's silver eyes flared. "They were never meant to. We were." The horizon rose from the surface without a sound, its hull lighting up with flowing blue patterns. In seconds, it was in motion, moving faster than Imperial tracking systems could follow. It appeared behind the creature, its form shifting, unfolding, into a new shape. Long spines of light stretched from its hull, each humming with strange energy. The creature turned, its limbs cutting through the void. But before it could strike, the horizon's spines released bursts of light that rippled through space like waves. Where the waves touched the creature, chunks of its body dissolved into nothing, vanishing without debris. Imperial crews watched in shock. That's impossible," one officer whispered. "It's rewriting matter." The horizon weaved around the creature, striking again and again. But the enemy was fast. Faster than something its size should be. It lashed out, one limb grazing the horizon's side. Where it touched, the ship's surface warped and melted. Jalen felt the shock like a sharp pain in his chest. He staggered. What was that? "We are linked," the figure said. "When the ship bleeds, we feel it." The creature reeled from another wave of light, its form flickering, parts of it phasing in and out of reality. It shrieked, not through sound, but through a deep vibration that rattled every Imperial ship in the fleet. Then, in an instant, it turned and fled, folding into a tear in space that closed behind it. The horizon slowed, its blue light dimming. The figure of light looked at Jalen with an expression that, for the first time, seemed like fear. "It will return, and it will not come alone." The horizon drifted in silence after the battle. Imperial ships kept their distance, their weapons still aimed, even though it was clear the strange vessel was no enemy. At least not yet. Jalen stood at the bridge, watching the fleet on the horizon of space. He could almost feel their fear from here. The figure of light stood beside him. "They think we are the danger. That is why they will not survive what's coming." Jalen crossed his arms. "Then tell me what is coming. No riddles." The figure paused, its form flickering through a dozen faces before settling on the calm, weathered look of Captain Elias Rohn. "It began with the wormhole, the one you call the anomaly." The walls of the bridge rippled and a vision filled the space around them. Jalen was standing, yet he felt as though he were floating in the void. Before him, the wormhole appeared, a vast whirlpool of stars and blackness, its edges glowing faintly gold. "This was not a natural phenomenon," the figure said. "It was built. A door made long before the Empire rose, a door between our space and theirs." In the vision, the wormhole shifted. On the other side, Jalen saw shapes moving, faint, enormous, and wrong, as if reality bent to hide their full form. The builders made it to travel, but something else found it. Something that feeds on stars, worlds, and minds. When we crossed, they followed. Jalen watched as the vision changed again. The horizon entered the wormhole, its crew still human, still unaware. He saw what came next, a realm without light or shadow, where space twisted in impossible ways. His head ached just trying to make sense of it. In that place, time has no meaning, the figure continued. Our bodies could not survive, but our thoughts, our essence, could. The horizon merged with us, we became one, and learned to move between realities. Jalen turned to look at the figure. And the enemy? They learned too. They cannot create. They can only take, and they have taken worlds before yours. The vision shifted again, showing shattered planets and hollow stars. The dark creatures moved among them, their forms never fully visible, only hinted at by the way. Space bent around them. Jalen's fists tightened. The Empire has to know. The figure's eyes burned silver. The Empire will not believe. They will see only a human ship with impossible power, and they will try to take it. But we will not let them. We need allies, not masters. The Horizon's map expanded across the bridge. Jalen saw familiar Imperial space on one side, but on the other an expanse of uncharted stars, glowing with faint blue light. Dozens of wormholes were marked there, each one pulsing softly. These are gates, the figure said. Some are dormant, others are already open. If the enemy takes one more, the rest will fall. Jalen stared at the map, feeling the weight of it sink into his chest. So, what's the plan? The figure's shifting face smiled faintly. First, we return to where it began. You will see the wormhole with your own eyes. The horizon's hum deepened, and the ship turned toward, the darkness vanishing into its strange, silent jump. The horizon emerged from its strange jump into the quiet black of space. Ahead, the wormhole shimmered faintly, its golden edges turning slowly like a wheel. It looked peaceful. But Jalen knew better now. Behind that calm surface waited the enemy. The figure of light stood at the edge of the bridge, its gaze fixed on the swirling gateway. This is where everything changed for us, and it is where it will change for you. Before Jalen could answer, the horizon's sensors pulsed. With a warning, multiple ships were approaching fast. Imperial transponder codes lit up the display. On the command deck of the Imperial flagship Crown of Varan, Admiral Reth watched the horizon on his main screen. His voice was cold. Lock tractor beams, power boarding craft, secure the ship. No harm to the pilot if possible. An officer hesitated. Sir, with respect, that ship just saved our fleet. Reth's eyes narrowed. It is an unknown superweapon under alien influence. If the Empire doesn't control it, someone else will, and that cannot be allowed. Jalen saw the fleet closing in on them. Why are they moving into attack formation? They're our allies. The figure's expression didn't change. Fear is stronger than gratitude. They will try to take us, and they do not understand what will happen if they succeed. Tractor beams fired from the Imperial ships, thick green lines of energy latching onto the horizon's hull. The ship shook under the pull, its blue lights flickering. Jalen grabbed the edge of the bridge console. Can't you just jump away? Not yet, the figure said. If we do, they will think we have fled to attack later. We must give them a choice. And if they refuse, we will act. Imperial boarding craft launched from the nearest cruisers. Sleek, armored shuttles streaked toward the horizon. Jalen's chest tightened. They're not going to listen, are they? No, the figure replied. The horizon's hull shifted. Sections unfolded into curved plates, revealing long, thin spines of light. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through Jalen's bones. On the flagship, Admiral Reth's eyes widened as the horizon's weapons came online. All ships, open fire! Blue light erupted from the horizon's spines, not as beams but as ripples that spread through space. The tractor beams snapped instantly. The nearest boarding shuttles dissolved into drifting particles, their crews gone before they could scream. The Imperial fleet reeled back, shields flaring against the strange energy. Jalen turned to the figure. "You killed them!" "No," it interrupted. "We removed them from this place. They are safe, for now." The Horizon's voice, a deep, resonant tone, echoed through every Imperial channel. "Stand down. We are not your enemy. The true danger waits beyond the gate. If you fire again, we will defend ourselves." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Admiral Reth's voice cut through the comms, cold and certain. "Disable them." The figure's silver eyes dimmed. "Then they have chosen." The Horizon's lights flared, and in an instant, the ship vanished into a silent jump, leaving the Imperial fleet spinning in its wake and heading straight toward the wormhole. The Horizon appeared in silence at the edge of the wormhole. Its golden rim turned slowly, like a giant wheel in the dark. Inside, shadows shifted, not like clouds, but like living things drifting just out of sight. Jalen stood on the bridge, staring at it. His throat felt dry. "That's not just light in there, is it?" The figure of light stepped forward. "No. You are seeing pieces of what waits beyond. Shapes your mind can understand. The rest, your mind cannot hold yet." The hum of the Horizon deepened. Blue light spread across its hull, flowing like liquid. The edges of the wormhole flared brighter, responding to the ship's presence. "Once we enter, time will not move as you know it," the figure warned. "Every thought, every breath may stretch for years, or vanish in a second." Jalen's hand tightened on the rail. "And if I don't survive?" The figure's expression softened into something almost human. "Then you will change, just as we did." The Horizon moved forward. At first it was like flying into golden mist. Then the light became too bright, too sharp, until it burned in Jalen's eyes. He blinked, and suddenly the bridge was gone. He was floating in open space, yet he could breathe. Around him stretched an endless black sea, broken by rivers of color that moved like water. Strange shapes swam in those rivers, enormous, shifting creatures whose bodies were made of shadow and light. Jalen turned and saw the Horizon beside him, no longer a ship of metal but a vast, living shape made of flowing blue crystal and silver threads. He realized the figure of light was gone. Or maybe it was the Horizon now. A deep voice, not from any direction, spoke in his mind. "This is the fold, the place between places. The enemy lives here as easily as you live in air." Jalen looked toward the distance, though distance didn't feel real here, and saw massive towers rising from the Black Sea. They were built from the same shimmering darkness as the creatures they had fought before. One of those towers moved. It wasn't a building. It was alive. The structure bent toward them, and the rivers of color shifted violently as something vast began to wake. Jalen's breath caught. "That's one of them?" "A harvester," the voice said. "Not the largest, but large enough to end worlds." The harvester opened like a flower made of knives, revealing a dark core that pulled at everything around it. Jalen felt the pull in his mind, like a voice whispering for him to let go, to stop fighting, to simply fall. The Horizon's light flared, pulling him back. "Do not listen. They feed on thought before they feed on matter." The harvester's limbs began to unfold toward them. The Horizon shifted shape again, its crystal spines glowing brighter than Jalen had ever seen. "Now," the voice said, "you will see why we survived." The harvester's limbs stretched through the fold, each one longer than a mountain range, each tipped with blades that shimmered with black fire. Jalen couldn't tell if they moved fast or slow. Here, speed didn't work the way it did in real space. One moment the limbs were far away, and the next they were close enough to slice the Horizon in half. The Horizon's spines glowed, forming arcs of blue energy that curved through the void like living lightning. The energy struck the harvesters, limbs cutting deep, but the wounds didn't bleed. Instead, they oozed swirling shadow that dissolved into the Black Sea. Then Jalen felt it. A voice, not spoken but inside his head, pressing into his thoughts. It was not words at first, only feelings, hunger, cold, and the endless need to consume. Then the feelings shaped into something that sounded like speech. You are small. You are warm. You will feed us. Jalen's vision blurred. Memories spilled out of him, his childhood home, his first ship, the smell of rain on his old colony world. The harvester was pulling them out, stripping him piece by piece. The horizon's voice thundered in his mind. "Push it back!" Jalen gritted his teeth and focused on something else, the bridge, the hum of the ship, the blue light on the spines. Slowly, the harvester's pull weakened, but it didn't stop. The horizon dove toward the harvester's core, weaving between its limbs. Space twisted around them, sometimes turning inside out, so that Jalen saw himself from behind even as he moved forward. The sensation made his stomach twist, but he held on. The harvester's maw opened. It wasn't a mouth in the normal sense, more like a hole in reality, a sphere of total darkness where no light escaped. Inside it, Jalen saw glimpses of other worlds, each one breaking apart under the harvester's shadow. The horizon flared brighter, sending a pulse through the fold. The blue light wrapped around its hull, forming a spear of energy. "We strike. Now," the voice said. They hit the maw head-on. For a moment, everything vanished. No light, no sound, no sense of self. Jalen floated in a place without direction, feeling like he could dissolve at any second. Then a shock tore through the void. The harvester screamed, not with sound, but with a ripple of space that shattered parts of the rivers of color around it. The maw snapped shut, and the harvester recoiled, limbs flailing as the horizon's spear of light burned through its core. But victory didn't feel certain. Jalen saw movement beyond the harvester, massive shapes, many of them, each moving toward the fight. Their forms were bigger, stranger, and far more dangerous. The horizon's voice was calm but urgent. "More are coming. If we stay, we die." Blue light exploded around them, and in a blink, the horizon pulled free from the fold, shooting back toward the wormhole, leaving the harvester wounded but alive, and the rest of its kind rising from the darkness behind it. The horizon burst out of the wormhole in a flash of blue light. Real space felt heavy after the fold, like the universe itself pressed down on them. Jalen staggered, gripping the console. His head still buzzed with the echo of the harvester's voice. The figure of light appeared beside him, its form dimmer than before. "We hurt it, but it will heal, and it will come." Jalen turned toward the screen and froze. The Imperial fleet was waiting. Dozens of warships surrounded the wormhole, weapons locked on the horizon. On the crown of Varan, Admiral Reth stood at the command table. "Target their engines. If we cannot capture them, we will cripple them." An officer glanced at the readings. "Sir, energy signatures from the wormhole are unstable. Something large is—" "Fire," Reth ordered. The horizon's sensors lit up with incoming fire. Streams of plasma and rail rounds streaked toward them from every direction. Jalen slammed his hand on the console. "They're attacking now? After what's behind us?" The figure's silver eyes flared. "They think they are protecting themselves. They are inviting their destruction." The horizon's shields flared blue, absorbing the first wave of shots. But the fleet was relentless. Beams tore across space, shaking the hull. Then the wormhole behind them roared. It wasn't a sound. It was a vibration in space, a deep, wrong tremor that reached into Jalen's bones. Light spilled from the wormhole, not golden now, but black and purple, swirling violently. Shapes began to emerge. First one limb, then another, then dozens, each the size of a warship. The harvester was coming through. and behind it, more shadows moved. On the crown of Varan, the bridge crew stared at the main screen. "My God!" one whispered. Admiral Reth's face went pale. "Pull the fleet back!" He didn't finish. The first harvester lash struck, slicing an escort cruiser clean in half. Another limb wrapped around a battleship, crushing it until it exploded in a sphere of flame. The Horizon's voice boomed across all channels. "If you want to live, follow us, now!" Some ships broke formation immediately, fleeing. Others hesitated, caught between orders and survival. The Horizon's engines flared, cutting a path through the chaos. Jalen looked back at the wormhole, where more dark shapes were forcing their way through. "This isn't a battle we can win here, is it?" "No," the figure said. "This is only the beginning." The Horizon jumped, dragging a handful of Imperial ships with it, and leaving the rest to the Harvester's mercy. The Horizon tore through space, its engines leaving a streak of blue light in the void. Behind it, the surviving Imperial ships followed in tight formation, some damaged, some barely holding together. Their shields flickered from the earlier fight. Jalen sat at the navigation console, scanning their course. "How far until we reach safe space?" The figure of light didn't look at him. "There is no safe space now. They can follow us anywhere." The comm crackled with the voice of Captain Vera from one of the Imperial destroyers. "This is Steel Hammer. We've lost weapons control. If those things catch us, we're finished." Jalen's gut twisted. He could almost feel the shadows gaining. Even without sensors, there was a pressure behind them. A slow, steady pull, like the universe itself was being dragged in their direction. The Horizon shifted its course, diving into a region of space where stars were hidden behind thick clouds of cosmic dust. The dust glowed faintly, swirling like smoke lit from within. "Why here?" Jalen asked. "It will slow them," the figure replied. For a moment, but a moment wasn't long. The shadows broke through the dust, their shapes more visible now. Jalen saw the Harvester's limbs reaching forward, slicing through the cloud like it was nothing. Behind it, more shapes emerged, smaller than the Harvester but still massive, each moving with sick, unnatural grace. The Horizon's voice thundered in Jalen's mind. "We will split the fleet. Some will escape. Some will fight." Jalen stared at the figure. "Fight? Against that? That's not a fight. That's suicide." "Better some live than none," the figure said simply. Before Jalen could answer, the Horizon released a shockwave of blue light. The pulse hit the Imperial ships, and in an instant, half of them blinked out of sight, forced into emergency jumps to random coordinates. The remaining ships turned, weapons charging. The Horizon stayed with them. The Harvester struck first, its limb smashing into a frigate and sending it spinning into the dust. Plasma fire lit the void, but most of it passed harmlessly through the enemy's strange bodies. The Horizon darted forward, slicing through one of the smaller shadows with its spear of light. The creature folded in on itself, vanishing with a ripple. But another took its place almost instantly. Jalen's hands clenched into fists. "We can't hold them here." "We won't," the figure said, "but we can make them bleed." The Horizon's light flared again, preparing for another strike, one that might cost them everything. The Harvester loomed larger now, its massive body blotting out what little light filtered through the dust clouds. Each movement sent shock waves through space, bending the stars into strange shapes. Smaller shadows swirled around it like predators escorting a king. On the Horizon's bridge, Jalen gripped the rail so hard his knuckles ached. "You're not planning to fight it head-on again, are you?" The figure of light turned to him. "No. This time we strike where it cannot heal." The Horizon's engines roared, their blue light brightening until the panels on the bridge glowed. The ship dived straight toward the Harvester's side, weaving through swarms of smaller creatures. Plasma beams from the remaining Imperial ships flashed past, distracting the enemy. Jalen's heart pounded. "If we get that close, won't it just—" Yes, the figure said calmly. That is why we must be faster than death. The harvester sensed them. One of its limbs swung down like a falling tower, slicing through two escort fighters and missing the horizon by only meters. The void rippled where it passed, as if space itself had been wounded. The horizon spun, dodging again, and again every move perfectly timed. They closed the distance until Jalen could see the harvester's skin, not flesh, but layers of shifting dark glass, each reflecting 1,000 distorted stars. "Target locked," the horizon's voice boomed. Blue light surged down, its crystal spines gathering at the front until it formed a spear brighter than anything Jalen had seen before. The energy burned so intensely that even the dust clouds vaporized in its path. The harvester moved to block them, its maw opening. But that was the mistake. The horizon plunged forward, not into the maw but beneath it, sliding under the massive core. The spear of light drove deep into a narrow seam between its shifting layers. A soundless scream tore through the void. The harvester's entire body convulsed, its limbs whipping wildly, striking friend and foe alike. Smaller shadows scattered, their forms unraveling. The horizon didn't stop. It fired a second pulse directly into the wound, and the blue light turned white, exploding outward in a burst so bright it burned Jalen's eyes even behind the shields. When his vision cleared, he saw the harvester drifting, one side shattered and leaking shadow into the dust. It was still alive, but slower. Weaker. "Power levels at 30%, the horizon's voice said. "We cannot fight again soon." The figure of light looked at Jalen. "Now we run, and hope the others can hold them off." Without waiting for a reply, the horizon turned sharply, leaving the wounded harvester and the burning battlefield behind. But even in retreat, Jalen knew it would come after them again. The horizon slipped through the edge of known space, leaving the battle far behind. Stars grew clearer here, free from the dust clouds and twisted light of the fold's edge. The silence felt heavy, almost unreal after the chaos they had just survived. Jalen sat in the pilot's chair, every muscle in his body aching. "We made it," he said, though the words felt strange in his mouth, like he was trying to convince himself. The figure of light stood beside him, its form faint, the glow weaker than ever. "We have escaped. For now." A comm signal came. Through from one of the surviving Imperial ships. Captain Vera's voice was hoarse. "We lost half the fleet. The rest, I don't know if they made it. Whatever that thing was, I don't think it was alone." Jalen glanced at the figure. "She's right, isn't she?" The figure's silver eyes didn't blink. "It was never alone, and it will never stop." Hours passed. The horizon moved, quietly through the void, scanning for any sign of pursuit. The readings came back clear, no energy spikes, no gravitational disturbances. But then Jalen noticed it. A faint, almost invisible shimmer trailing behind the ship. It wasn't on. The sensors. It wasn't a ship. It was more like a shadow that wasn't connected to anything, drifting where light should have been. He turned to the figure. "What is that?" The answer was immediate. "It's Mark. It touched us in the fold. Now it knows our shape. Wherever we go, it will find us." Jalen's stomach turned cold. "So we didn't escape?" "No," the figure said. "We only delayed the end." The horizon's lights dimmed slightly as it adjusted its course, heading for deeper, unexplored space. On. The screen. The shadow still followed. Never closer, never farther, as if waiting. Jalen tightened his grip on the controls. "Then we find somewhere it can't follow." The figure's glow flickered like a dying star. "If such a place exists, we will find it." But the hunt has already begun. Far behind them, in the black between stars, The harvester moved. Its wound still burned with fading blue light, but its many limbs reached forward steady and patient. The prey had fled, but in the harvester's mind, the chase was the sweetest part.